Taming the High Cost of College, Ep005.
You have kids, they grow up, and before you know it, it's time to plan for college.
Where do you start?
How much is it going to cost?
Will you qualify for financial aid?
Should you be looking into scholarships?
When will you be able to retire?
What about student loans?
The list of questions is never ending. The good news is, all the answers are right here. Welcome to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Here is your host, certified financial planner, Brad Baldridge.
Hello, and welcome to episode number 5 of Taming the High Cost of College. My name is Brad Baldridge, and I'm your host. And today I have a great interview with Kim Stezala. She's a scholarship expert and literally wrote the book about scholarships. After we get done with the interview, I'm going to answer the 3 top questions I hear over and over again about scholarships, how they work, and when you should be applying for them. So there's a lot of great nuggets there if you're thinking about how to pursue scholarships for your students. And then finally, I recommend a book, Is College Worth It? And there's a quick summary of what's going on in that book as well. As always, all this information that we cover in this podcast is available at our website at www.tamingthehighcostofcollege.com. If you have any questions or you need any help on any of this stuff, please pop us an email or send us a voicemail through the website. I'd love to hear your questions. I'd love to hear your feedback as far as what we're covering, and we'll take it from there. So let's go ahead and jump right into the interview. And this is our interview with Kim Stezala. I am here with Kim Stezala. She is my scholarship expert. Whenever I have a question about scholarships, she's the person I call. She's been in the industry for many, many years, and I'll actually let her explain all the wonderful things that she's done. So welcome, Kim.
Hi, Brad. Thanks for having me here today. I'm happy to talk about scholarships and any questions that you have.
Okay, tell us a little bit about your background. I know you've built websites about scholarships and written books and all kinds of things. So how long have you been involved with scholarships?
Wow, a really long time. I started out my career actually working at a K-12 scholarship provider. And through the years, just kind of moved on to different positions. Most recently, I am the author of Scholarships 101, the real world guide to getting cash for college. You can pick that up at Barnes & Noble or Amazon.com. That's actually where I buy my own books.
Yep. Well, I have picked it up and it's good. Okay. I know you just came back from a conference that focuses on scholarships. Tell us a little bit about that.
This was a great conference. So part of my advice and part of my mission when I work with families is I try to connect the people who have the money with the people who need the money. And part of meeting that mission is going out and meeting with scholarship providers. Once a year, I spend a week with scholarship providers, and it's really helpful because they're the ones who have the money, right? And they're the ones who make the rules, and they know the kind of students that they're looking for. So while they're a very diverse group, they are all committed to helping families pay for college. It was just a great week, really awesome people, dedicated. And I learned about a few tools there. I learned about a big issue in the scholarship world. And then I learned a piece of advice from a former Coca-Cola scholar that I'd like to share.
Oh, well, great. So what was the name of the conference?
The National Scholarship Providers Association Conference, and it was in Portland, Oregon.
Right. Now, that's not a type of conference where a typical family or student would go to?
It's not. It's really for people who work in the scholarship industry. I was a speaker there. I was a consultant there. A few years ago, I helped them write and edit the best practices toolkit for scholarship providers.
Okay, so you also can now consult with scholarship providers then?
Yes, I do work with students directly through some of my scholarship boot camps, through the Greater Milwaukee College Workshop with you and your team. And I do a lot of public speaking with students and parents, but in order to, kind of be a game changer in the scholarship world, I consult with scholarship providers basically on how to improve their programs or do a better job of giving away their money.
All right. Well, let's learn a little bit about the insider stuff you learned at the conference.
Well, first of all, I was really inspired. I met 2 young gentlemen who are current college students who created their own website. They saw a need in the scholarship community for a common app, just like you have the common app for college. They've created a common scholarship application. It's free for families to use. The name of their website is Scholasphere. That would be SCHOLASPHERE, Scholasphere. So if you go to scholasphere.com, Students and parents can log in for free. They're in what they're calling their soft launch phase, not quite, maybe a beta release. That's what you might consider it. But the purpose is the majority of scholarship applications, as you know, ask you the same information. Probably 80% of that information is all the same. And they created this really as a way to streamline the process and to help families and students save time. So they hope to have more scholarship providers on board in the future. I think now maybe they have half a dozen folks on there. You can poke around the site and kind of see what they have. Scholasphere is a little bit different than ScholarSnap, and that's SNAPP. ScholarSnap was created by some of the folks at Dell, actually, the Dell Foundation. And that follows kind of the same idea where they recognize that students are entering a lot of the information repeatedly. So if you're using fastweb.com or scholarships.com, either one of those sites, there's a tool or a widget that you can add on called ScholarSnap, where once you enter your information one time, then it becomes a portable file, and that information can pre-populate multiple scholarship applications. Two really cool resources for families to save them time.
All right, so ScholarSnap is a tool that you use with other people's websites, it sounds like?
Yes, and not every scholarship provider in the country, obviously, isn't connected to that. But if you were to go to scholarships.com or fastweb.com, that's where I recommend for students to start out using the ScholarSnap app.
All right, great. So, and I will provide links to all of the stuff we're talking about today in the show notes. So if you're driving or whatever, you don't need to be writing it down. We will, you just hit the website. We'll have all the data there, as well as information for Kim's book and everything. So, all right. And what else did you learn there?
Okay, one of the second things I learned that was really important, it's important to scholarship providers, and it's also important to those types of students who are likely to win multiple scholarships. So I know we often talk to students about the odds of winning scholarships and you know how it is difficult. It is a competition. But the reality is the students who figure it out, like some of the students I interviewed for my book, all I knew is that they had won scholarship. But after I finished interviewing them, I realized all of them had won multiple scholarships because they figured it out. They kind of figured out that process. And what happens to some students at sort of that top tier of scholarship winners is they might actually, it sounds crazy, but they might actually accumulate so much money that they have too much money above the cost of attendance at their college. And what some of the colleges might do in that case, with the technical term is an over-awarded. Basically, the students are, have too much scholarship awards or too many scholarship awards. Some of the colleges will take back an initial grant or scholarship that may have come directly from the college to that student because now the student has too much money. And they may actually give that original grant or scholarship to a different student at the campus. So it's kind of controversial. I think the takeaway for parents and students, first of all, congratulations if you're in that situation that you have more money than you know what to do with. But the second thing about it is you really need to talk to the scholarship providers. If you're in this situation, you need to talk to the financial aid folks on campus, but really go back to the providers because it seems that the scholarship providers have more flexibility in how they spend their money versus some of the colleges. So for instance, as a parent, I'm not sure a student would know the technical term or the language, but for a parent, you might ask the scholarship provider to simply defer the money for a year. Some of them can do that, and some of them will do that. I know some of the large national scholarship providers, they actually have a deferment policy. But you don't know, right, if you don't ask about it. And then what you can do is use that scholarship money maybe in your sophomore year or your junior year, however far out they're able to roll it.
Right. So let me give you an example, and I think to kind of clarify what you just said, because I actually had a student where this exact thing happened. I had a student that worked really hard. He won about $39,000 in total scholarships. Now, most of those awards, there were 7 awards. 2 of them were multiple year awards where he got $5,000 for 4 years.
That's awesome.
But then the other awards were all for the first year. So he was attending a state school for a total cost of $25,000. By the time you added up all his scholarships for the first year, he had somewhere in the neighborhood of $28,000 of first year money. We had extra money. Now, a lot of the smaller scholarships still sent him the money, and I guess technically he had to pay taxes on that scholarship money. And the school didn't give him an award, so they didn't have anything to take back. So in your example, though, let's say you have a hardworking student and they apply to an expensive private school. Total cost $50,000. And that private school awards them a scholarship of, say, $20,000. Now, if they go out elsewhere and they win $50,000 of outside scholarships, the way I understand what you just said is the college may then say, wait a minute, that $20,000 we offered you, you don't need it, so we're going to take it back and we're going to use it on some other student.
Exactly.
That doesn't sound fair.
Yeah, believe me, families are not happy when this happens. But you have to look at it from all angles. And at the conference, we had very frank discussions between colleges and universities and scholarship providers. But these colleges and universities, and certainly the people who work in the financial aid department, they have no control over that. These are, policies written in place, obviously, to maximize the money, the college's own money. If they're getting state aid, if it's a public college, they have to maximize their dollars.
Right.
So it makes sense to them. The other thing for parents and students to know is it should really be a transparent process. So here's another insider tip for you if you think this is a possibility that this may happen to your son or daughter or yourself if you're returning to school, is you ask the financial aid department what their displacement policy is. Every college is supposed to have a displacement policy that would kick in, again, if a student were over-awarded money. But you're probably not going to, again, find that just surfing through their website or the general scholarship or grant information.
Right. So if you're on track and you're starting to be finalists for some large awards, if you find the displacement policy, it sounds to me like one of your solutions was to go back to the scholarship providers and say, well, I can only accept $25,000 this year or I'll start losing other awards. So what I'd rather you do is take the award that you were going to give me this year and save some of it for next year. So you can kind of go back to the scholarship providers and change the schedule of awards so that it doesn't interfere with your other awards from the actual college. Is that one of the solutions?
It is a solution. And I just want to clarify, not all of them can be flexible. I just find industry-wide, they tend to be more flexible than a college and university can be.
So it sounds like there's two places to work then. And if that doesn't work, then you go back to the university and see if you can get some help there. But my recommendation on the whole thing is don't take it lying down. Certainly get on the phone, talk with anybody and everybody and see if you can, get it corrected. All right. Anything else that you learned at the conference?
Well, the last thing. So first I told you about the tools. The second was kind of a insider tip on policy information to maximize your scholarship awards. And the last was a message that came across loud and clear by a former Coca-Cola scholar who now works at Nike. Was just a very interesting young man to talk to. And his advice was, as you go through the scholarship award process, to be true to yourself. And he talked about throughout his high school and college and career life, how important that was and how it opened up so many opportunities. So basically for scholarship seeking students, my advice there is don't try to put yourself in somebody else's mold or try to be somebody who you're not. Or think, well, I'm going to, write this application through this certain angle because then I'll fit better. You're really doing a disservice to yourself and it's going to look contrived and you're not really going to stand out. So really seek out those scholarship applications where you can do a good job, you can be yourself, and you'll be more passionate and enthusiastic when you're writing about yourself as well on any of the essay questions or that. Again, if you're just being true to yourself and who you are.
Great. All right. So we appreciate you getting all this good information and bringing it back. And I guess what I'd like to do is spend the next few minutes kind of winding back to your beginning days. You wrote a book called Scholarships 101. So that sounds like an introductory type of book where you talk about some of the basics. And I think some of you may have gotten a lot out of the more technical side. But let's talk about a typical family that's just getting into the process. Let's say I have a sophomore or junior, and I'm thinking, well, got a, above average student. We'd like him to win scholarships, but we don't really know where to start. We don't know if which ones he could win. We just don't know how to do the process. What would your advice be to someone that's just rolling into the process kind of early in the college search?
Well, first of all, I think junior year is a great year. When I do work with student groups or high schools or boys and girls clubs or whatever group it is where I'm going as a speaker, I always ask to speak to the juniors instead of the seniors, which is kind of counterintuitive. But if you wait until senior year to begin your scholarship search, you're just putting yourself at a disadvantage compared to the students who start, maybe sophomore and junior year. What I find with freshmen is their high school freshmen are just too blindsided by starting high school that they can't really focus on this quite yet. But by the end of sophomore year, beginning of junior year, one of the very first steps before students, start attacking the computer or the websites, different, internet sites, scholarship sites, et cetera, before they even do that, for instance, in our scholarship boot camp, we have students write down something called a dream letter. Now, you might call it your goal letter or something, but you need to start being able to articulate why you want to go to college, what it is that you might want to do, and how you're going to hold yourself accountable. Now, again, these things you're thinking, what does it have to do with winning scholarships? Well, what it has to do with it is it gives your family a point to focus on. What is the point? Why are we doing this? Besides saving your parents money and reducing student loan debt. But I find that it really taps into not just the financial reasons to go to college, but also the emotional reasons why students want to go to college. So that's sort of a starter. The second part then is we have students, and I would recommend for your listeners, we have students, basically you take out a piece of paper or type or a Word document, wherever you want to do this, on your phone. And down the left-hand side, you sort of do a brainstorming or a brain dump on every single thing you can think of about your achievements academically. Don't leave anything out, just even the most minor thing. On the right-hand side of the piece of paper, then what we have students do is write down all kinds of personal information about their parents, where their parents work if they work, where their parents volunteer if their parents volunteer, where their grandparents might volunteer, if anybody in their family served in the military, a grandparent or a parent again. We ask students to write down very personal information that's eventually could lead to scholarships. And we don't take it lightly. I mean, we really write down everything possibly we can think about. Where were they born? If they haven't lived in the same city their whole life, what different schools they went to, what organizations they were involved in. And it's not quite a resume at this stage, but it really helps families, get to know themselves better. You'd be surprised at what you learn kind of going through this process, maybe about your grandparents or something. You might also learn some information, what I call sensitive information. So, if you have a learning disability or something like that, you write it down. If you're the child of a breast cancer survivor, you write it down. And these are the kinds of things you would never share on a public resume. But when it comes to hunting for scholarships, I tell you, it makes a big difference. The students who take this extra step and write all this down, because then when they're looking for scholarships, you kind of have selective perception. And for students who see the list, it's like, wow, I had no idea there was a scholarship for this trait or that trait or my family background or the fact that my grandpa is a member of the American Legion or something like that. I mean, there's all kinds of different scholarships, not only connected to students' accomplishment, but traits within their family, such as their parents or grandparents. Then after they do that, I recommend that students select at least 2 of the free scholarship search engines. I've mentioned a few earlier in the podcast, but there's a lot more. And the reason I recommend 2 is they use different technology. And so even though it's a lot of the same information, when you enter your information about yourself, you're going to come back with different results. And what I mean by that is in their own search engines. So you could enter the same information and get 2 different lists from these different scholarship search engine providers. Again, all of those should be free. Quick tips, you never enter your social security number in there. And also recognize if you don't want to get emails or advertising offers, et cetera, you can opt out of that. And you just sort of uncheck the box.
Another strategy to avoid the advertising blast is to set up a free email account, get a Gmail account or Hotmail or whatever, and use that account while you're doing your searching. And then when you actively want to see what's going on, you can read that email. But certainly don't give your work email. For parents out there, don't give your work email to some of these places, because they become your best friend and they will start sending you daily emails about scholarships and so forth. So that's one recommendation I give all parents, is set up a separate email for the college process, so that when the college process is done, you can just turn it off and walk away, and you're not constantly bombarded at work or at other important emails with all that material.
That's great advice. And being protective about your family's information, I think in general, is just a good reminder for your listeners.
Okay. So obviously you have a book out there. So my question would be, if you're thinking about scholarships, you want to get started, I think a lot of people say, well, let's go read a book. So if you read a scholarship book in your sophomore or junior year, that's not at all too early, is it?
No. It's, again, the timing that I recommend. And here's the reason why. When senior year comes around, you are filling out college applications, usually in the fall of your senior year. You might have some special awards ceremony. You might have prom. If you're an athlete, you've got all kinds of awards banquets. Senior year, it just comes fast and furious, and there's so much going on that it's hard. It's really hard for students to devote time to sort of this extra thing, this scholarship process. The most successful students I've met have told me that they work on their scholarship empire. That's what I called it, building your scholarship empire. They work on that in the summer between their junior and senior year. That way, when senior year hits, because most scholarship applications are due in a student's senior year of high school, but for those that worked on it over the summer, they're ready to go. They've got the different files. They know the different deadlines. Maybe they've crafted their initial essay. They've got their facts, because if they've gone through my boot camp or read my book, they know all the facts about themselves and their family and their academic statistics, etc. And they're just ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Last question. What is the parents' role in the scholarship process? I mean, hopefully they're not writing the essays or, doing everything for the student, but what is their role? Where do you see it working the best?
It's a great question. So prior to the application, one of the best things they can do for their son or daughter is to, again, talk about their family background, their traits, kind of fill everybody in on the activities, their own activities, because there could be scholarships related to that. I had a student I worked with at a local university, and I knew that the postal workers union that his dad was in had a scholarship, but he didn't even know that. And so there's these situations where I think there's a disconnect sometimes between the parents and the students. So first of all, I'd say is talk about that. Talk about your involvement in the church or the community or whatever it is, different organizations, because that can sometimes lead to money. A great thing for parents to do is help with the search process. So yes, I think a lot of young people are experts at Googling and whatnot, but there are, just some certain things, again, certain terminology or certain ideas about scholarships that parents may have that students, again, might not think about. So a lot of parents I meet, that's something that they can do, they're good at. If, they're sitting at the office at their lunch hour or something, they can use the computer and get a lot of that legwork done that takes a lot of time. Another thing that parents can do is help proofread students' essays. I agree with you, Brad. There is no way, there is no excuse for a parent writing a student's essay. That's not going to serve anybody well in the process, and certainly not in college, unless they plan to keep that up once their kid goes off to college. I don't know. But, scholarship providers, they do expect the students to do their own work and write their own essays. Another thing parents can do, this sounds funny, but have a stack of stamps kind of ready to go. I've heard so many horror stories about students racing to get to the mailbox to get a postmark by a certain day just because, they couldn't scrounge up a stamp or something. And it sounds trivial, but you don't want that 45 cents or whatever it is now to stand between you and your scholarship application getting in on time. And the reality is, even though students are online, you have to remember that a lot of scholarships are managed or administered by a one-man or one-woman shop sometimes, and sometimes it's even run by volunteers. So you might not find all the information you need online, or you might not find it at the last minute, okay? Because they printed it and mailed it out to a counselor's office or something, and it's pinned up on a wall somewhere. They might not have an up-to-date website. I mean, those are kind of all the things that as a parent to help your child understand, don't wait to the last minute and try to build out a timeline. When we work with students, we'll have them list all the deadlines of the scholarships that we think they can apply for. And then again, the parents can kind of nudge. This is my saying, nudge, don't nag, because it's not going to work. And the more you nag, the less they're going to want to do it. But, kind of nudge them towards those deadlines and looking at what other information you're going to need, the essays, the letters of recommendation. I encourage parents in my book, I encourage them to do something called Scholarship Saturdays or Scholarship Sundays, where you just forget about the chores for 1 or 2 days out of the month and you really focus on scholarships. I mean, if you think about it, you're asking a 17-year-old student to raise tens of thousands of dollars for college, or you're hoping that they'll find it. That's a very adult task that I don't even know most adults could fulfill. So again, just being supportive to their son or daughter. If you're getting frustrated, take a break, come back to it. It can be a very arduous process, but here's my final piece of encouragement is the families that figure this out, right? And the families that once you start winning maybe 1 scholarship or 2 scholarships, it has a snowball effect. And like I said, I've never met any students in my groups when I come back. I've never met anyone who won just 1 scholarship. It's like once they figure it out, they win multiple scholarships. And every dollar you win is one less dollar you owe. And that'll be a great feeling when you graduate from college to have less student debt.
Great. Well, that's been a wealth of information, and I think we're going to wrap it up here. But we are going to provide all kinds of links to Kimberly's websites and books and all that kind of stuff, so you can certainly get more information there. And I'm going to twist her arm, and I think I'm going to have her back in the next few months where we can talk a little bit more. She's a wealth of information. She can talk about this for hours, I'm sure, and I'd like to listen for hours. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can do that. But I appreciate you stopping by and giving us this great information, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks, Brad.
Have a question? Brad is accepting questions from his listeners now. Record a question at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com and get it answered on one of the future episodes.
For today's question and answer session, I have 3 questions I'm going to answer, all of them relating to scholarships. So it's a great follow-up to some of the stuff we just learned from Kim. First question I hear, and I heard just the other night at a presentation that I was doing, but the question is, when do we do scholarships, or what is the timeline when it comes to searching for scholarships? And often these are parents of juniors or seniors, and they're trying to figure out, when they should get started and how it all works. The timeline for scholarships is you start, in my opinion, as early as you reasonably can. So for a lot of families, there's a whole lot of scholarships out there that are available to the soon-to-be graduating senior. And those scholarships, the deadlines for application may start very early in the senior year or be near the end of the senior year or anywhere in between. And that's maybe 75 or 80% of the scholarships out there are targeting that graduating senior. And the process starts early in the senior year for some scholarships. As an example, some of the larger scholarships might have a couple different cuts. So in other words, you fill out a scholarship application. Based on those applications, you hear back, and they then ask you to do an additional essay, let's say. And then based on that essay, you now qualify for the interview. So you apply in November, in January, you submit an essay, in April, you do the interview, and then in May or June, you finally learn if you've actually won the scholarship. So that's kind of a long process that generally applies to some of the larger and higher dollar amount scholarships. But that type of thing is certainly available out there, and you need to understand how that process works and be ready to go very early in your senior year. So for a lot of families, finding these scholarships and learning how the process works is a good project for the junior year and the summer before the senior year starts. Other scholarships, especially some of the local scholarships, they might have an April deadline. So the application is due April 1st, and by April 31st, you discover if you've won or not. And it goes on a very short timeline through the senior year. So that's kind of the core senior year type scholarships. But in addition to that, there are certainly scholarships that are available to younger children, maybe your junior year of high school, but all the way down to even babies. Gerber offers some scholarships, and they, of course, are targeting babies. That's their target market. but they are not looking for essays from your 1-year-old. They are looking for maybe a picture or some artwork or whatever it might be relevant to what a 1-year-old might be able to do, or a short story from the parents about what happened with the student. So there's scholarships out there for students of any age. A big chunk of them focus on the graduating senior, but you can find chess competitions or the old, beauty pageants of old. A lot of those prizes for junior miss and some of those types of things are scholarships that are set aside for the student when they finally do go to college. So you can find scholarships at any time. And then for a lot of families, the whole scholarship process starts in the sophomore or junior year when you start tracking and discovering what scholarships you're going to pursue, so that when the senior year rolls around, you've got your list figured out, you know what you need to do, you've got a calendar, you know what essays and so forth, and you've done all the research ahead of time, so you're ready to just go for it as you roll into your senior year. So that's kind of the timeline. The next question I have, I also heard just recently at a presentation I was giving. I had a young lady come up to me and say, well, I'm just an average student, and there's a lot of kids out there that have better grades than me and so forth. Should I be pursuing scholarships? Should I even bother? And that's a good question. And unfortunately, a whole lot of families never bother. What happens is they intend to do scholarships, or maybe they don't intend to do scholarships, but whatever happens, and the junior and senior years slip by, and next thing you know, you're off to college, and you never quite got around to filling out any scholarships. Other families kind of look into it and realize that they don't want to do the work and effort, and they just say, our time is better spent elsewhere. We just choose not to get into this. So depending on your student, I think that's one of the factors. The other factor is it's not just grades for some scholarship. What makes your student unique? Do they excel at a sport or a musical instrument? Are they in key leadership positions in clubs and organizations? Do they have a unique history? Have they overcome something in their past? There's all kinds of reasons why scholarships might apply to a particular student. And if you can find things that make your student unique, those are the types of things that you would use in order to search for scholarships. And if you can find scholarships relevant to the fact that you're left-handed and you survived Hurricane Katrina, again, that might be a smaller subset of the overall population, and grades may not be as big a factor in that. And it might go on to other things like talents and so forth. Let's say your student was very active in this skateboarding community. That would be an example of, are there scholarships for that? Well, maybe not your typical scholarship where you fill out an essay and you write about something, but it might be a picture contest. If you submit a picture of a very cool trick on the skateboard, maybe there is a $500 or $1,000 award available for a unique picture. And that is, of course, sponsored by a skateboard manufacturer or a skateboard park or something like that, where they're just trying to get some publicity. There's the duct tape scholarship as another example. In a lot of my presentations, I talk about that. But if you look at Duck Brand Duct Tape, DUCK Brand Duct Tape, they've got a scholarship out there where the students have to do something creative with duct tape. They may have to create a prom outfit, and they wear that outfit to school on prom, take some pictures, and they submit it to the contest. Now, this is a well-publicized scholarship, and the students need to do a really good job in order to have a chance for this scholarship. But that, again, is an example of something that's way outside the box, and most people wouldn't think of it unless, they ran across it somehow. So there's lots of things that you can do, but if you can have anything that's unique, that's, I guess, where you would start. And the final question was emailed to me a few days ago, and the gist of the question is, well, where do I find all these scholarships? I've heard there's millions and millions of dollars worth of scholarships out there. Where do I find them? And I'm going to cover the 5 key areas real quick, and there's certainly more, but this is just a kind of a quick rundown of some of the things that you might want to try. The first one and the obvious one is the internet. There are scholarship websites out there, fastweb.com, scholarships.com. I'll put a whole list in the show notes, so you can just go there and look that up. But going to any one of these websites, it gives you an opportunity to search very large databases with all the various scholarships in there. And some of, they all work a little differently, but to some extent you put in some sort of search criteria or you put in a profile for the student and they try and match appropriate scholarships for those particular students. Now you have to realize that a lot of these scholarship search websites are free, so they have to make money somehow, or why do it? So the way they raise money typically is they advertise for colleges, they advertise for student loan companies, they collect your data and sell it to various companies. So you need to realize that you do not want to give your work email, as an example, out on the internet for your scholarship search. I recommend most families set up some sort of specific email just for scholarships so that when you're out on the websites, you give them that email so that when you're interested in scholarships, you go look at that email. And when you're not interested in scholarships or you're done with the scholarship search process, you can just kill that email and you won't be getting a barrage of emails at your work email or another important email, because I've seen some of these sites will send 2, 3, 4, 5 emails every day. Another place you can look for scholarships is at the colleges you're considering. So if you're interested in Boston College, go to Boston College's website and explore their opportunities for scholarships there. Talk to the various heads of various departments. Talk to alumni groups. Anything associated with the colleges you're considering. So that would be the outside scholarships. There's also potentially some scholarships directly through the financial aid office as well. You can find scholarships at your high school. At a presentation I did a couple nights ago at a high school, I asked the school counselor if there was any underutilized scholarships at their school, and they told me that there was a scholarship available, and it was targeted. You had to be either a football player, a cheerleader, or on the pom-pom squad. If you qualified through those things, you were able to apply for the scholarship. Last year, there was 4 applicants for the scholarship and 4 winners. So again, that scholarship was quite underutilized, and that might be an avenue that some students take. Instead of looking at the national scholarships through the internet, look at the more local scholarships, your local clubs and organizations. Another great place to find scholarships is your scholarship network. Talk with your friends and family and let them know you're searching for scholarships. And let them know that if they find something that they think might be a good fit for you, to pop you an email or just let you know. A lot of times, people that are out there, especially like your grandparents and your aunts and uncles, if they find something, they'll send it to you, but they have to know that you're looking. So you can work with your friends, your family, maybe even other high school friends, and kind of build a little network from there. And then finally, really focus on mom and dad and the family. Where do mom and dad work? Do they offer scholarships? Where do mom and dad play? Are there scholarships there? What about the associations? Oftentimes, mom or dad belong to unions or professional organizations that provide scholarships. Now, what about grandma and grandpa? There's things out there like scholarships for survivors of World War II and descendants of the Civil War and all kinds of different things where your grandparents' heritage may come into play. So search around relevant to what's going on in your family. Maybe there's religious organizations that also provide scholarships. So there's lots of different avenues, again, based on your family. So that's 5 areas you can search. There's certainly more, and we'll cover some of that as we put out more podcasts. But that's a good place for many people to get started. All right, so there we have the questions. It's time to move on to our next segment, Brad Recommends.
The latest tips, tricks, and tools you can use today. This is Brad Recommends on Taming the High Cost of College.
Today, for Brad Recommends, I have a book called Is College Worth It? And it was written by William J. Bennett, and he's a former Secretary of Education. And he wrote a book that's a little bit theoretical in nature. It's not a great guide as far as, how to visit schools or how financial aid works. But it's a book that's more about the overall direction of higher education. And I think there's a lot of great nuggets in it and so forth. If you are an avid reader and you're looking for something to read that will get you in the college mindset, so to speak, I think this is a great book. He talks a lot about kind of the overall goal of higher education. Are you there to learn new things? Are you there for job training? Why are you going to college? Chapter 1, the borrowing binge, he talks about how the cost of school is going up and the borrowing involved in participating in school is getting higher and higher. Chapter 3 is, so is it worth it? So he has a great discussion, and I think a lot of parents need to kind of take a look at this chapter. And he talks about, well, is it worth spending $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 on an education from a kind of a return on investment standpoint? If you're in, and I guess the general conclusion is if you're going for a technical degree like engineering or nursing or something, there is a way where you can do some math and say, is it really worth it or not? He also talks about some of the schools out there that seem like they might be abusing the system. So there's a lot of good information in there. And like I said, this is a great read if you're interested in learning more from a concept point of what college is about and kind of where college and higher education may be going in the future, it's not really all that useful for families that are saying, well, we need to figure out how financial aid works, or we want to understand visits. This is not a guidebook, doesn't have a lot of specific information about particular colleges, but it was very good as far as understanding the overall big picture of college education, where the prices are going, why the prices are rising so quickly. And I recommend you pick it up. I will put a link to this book in the show notes at Amazon, where you can go pick it up if you're interested. And this is where we're going to wrap things up. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate that you guys are coming out and listening to what I have to say about some of these things. We had a great program. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Please leave us a rating on iTunes or at Stitcher if that's how you're getting access to this program. And I would appreciate it. It helps us remain visible in those searches. Also, you can sign up for our email newsletter by visiting our website, or you can send this out to your friends and family through Facebook. Please spread the word. Our goal is to get this kind of information out to as many people as possible. So if you know someone that would benefit from this podcast, teach them how to do the podcast if they need help with that, but get the word out to as many people as you can. I appreciate you listening, and thank you very much.
Brad Baldridge is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research and an investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Brad owns two companies, Baldridge Wealth Management and Baldridge College Solutions. The Baldridge companies are not affiliated with Cambridge Investment Research.
Thank you for listening to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Now it's time for you to take action. Head to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com for show notes, bonus content, and to leave feedback for Brad. The next step on your college journey starts now.